West Ham United 1, Olympiacos 0. It wasn't an exciting game, to say the least. Unfortunately, West Ham really didn't turn up in the second half, but we got the goal. We got the all-important goal in order to win the game. First half was all right. We just weren't putting our chances away. We had the better of them. But Olympiacos did what they were trying to do. They were trying to slow the game down, going down, holding their heads. Don't know what happened in the first half. 2 players went down, Olympiacos players. They fouled our player. They had the trainers come on, and then they got up and they just carried on. They were meant to go on the side to be called back in. But anyway, the referee, a bit poor overall, but our performance was a bit poor as well. We're slow, and we look like we're still short of ideas. But you've got to give Olympiacos credit, because they did a number on our front players. Every time Bowen, Paqueta, Benrahma and Kudus got anywhere near the ball, they were all over. They had 3 or 4 players on our attackers, and they closed them down really, really fast. So in that respect, they were doing what they needed to do. They came out to get a draw here and maybe try to nick a win. And they only really started playing football when we scored the goal. And I thought, here we go, that isn't going to be given. But apparently I've been told it was well onside. And Paqueta, whatever you want to call him, he's got to be one of the sort of players that frustrates you as well as sort of makes you happy, because he gave the ball away so many times tonight, and he became almost a liability. You know, sort of like just passing it into nowhere, not picking up players, etc. And then he comes up with a goal like that. And I guess that's why you love a player like that, because he can be annoying, but he can also win you games, and that's exactly what he did. Kudus was a little bit quiet, seemed a little bit petulant when he got. I mean, that throw on was ours, but the referee gave it the other way. And he picked up a really unnecessary yellow card. But all in all, what can I say? When you get a win, you've got to sort of be grateful for that and move forward. Now Freiburg, they beat TSC 5-0, which means that Freiburg are top of our group, and that means not only have we got to beat Topola and try and get a really high score margin against them, we've also got to then beat Freiburg here in the last group game in order for us to win the group. Because if we finish second, then we've got a playoff, and we'll have a playoff against a Champions League team, which we don't really want. Overall, look, the team selection, it's a team that we all wanted. Every one of those players, you can't argue about the selection. David Moyes gave us what we wanted. He gave us the sort of team that played really well against Arsenal. Bowen, leading the line. Kudus out on the right. Benrahma on the left, etc. with Paqueta. But the only thing is, Ward-Prowse again played too deep, far too deep for my liking and for many fans' liking. And he's ineffective when he has to play so deep, which is a real shame, because, like I said in previous videos, Alvarez is good enough to be able to do the defensive midfield role on his own. And Olympiacos didn't come over here to win the game, so I wonder whether we needed 2 defensive midfielders. But maybe I'm picking hairs here. I don't know. But they didn't trouble us. We troubled them more. They had the minute we scored the goal, they started to play. I think they hit the post near the end of the game, and that's about it. What else do I have to say? Yes, Divin Mbama was brought on with 3 minutes to go. It doesn't matter how many minutes. It's very interesting that neither Ings or Antonio were brought on for those final few minutes. I was pretty much convinced that he'll bring Antonio on. So to give Divin Mbama, a few minutes aside from Antonio and Ings was a really, really good move. One could argue, of course, those two players are probably being saved for Sunday, and will be business as usual. But what you see with Divin Mbama, even in the few minutes that he was on, is that he scurries around. He tries to sort of close the opposition down, get at the defenders, put them under pressure in order for us to win the ball back, and it's lovely to see. Does he need to get more game time? I guess something's happened with Moyes. There's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, this week about David Moyes has been pulled into Sullivan's office and been read the Riot Act and all that sort of stuff. Look, apparently Moyes has been told that he won't be having his contract renewed at the end of the season. I don't believe that for a minute, to be quite honest with you, and it's quite an easy reason why, because you don't sort of say to someone, if you pull them in and read them, the Riot Act and say you need to do something different, otherwise we're going to have to think about your tenure as manager, that's great. If you're going to pull them in and say, well, I'm pulling you in because I'm going to sack you, that's fine. But to pull someone in, a manager in, and say at the end of the season you're not going to have your contract renewed, I don't buy that, to be quite honest with you. And I've also heard about someone messaged me, and I don't know where it's come from, but someone sent me a message this morning saying apparently Tim Steidten and has spoken to the parents of the youth team. Mark Noble and Tim Steidten have spoken to the parents and promised that there'll be game time for them. I don't know where that's come from, but at the same time, again, I don't buy that. You don't make promises that you can't keep, because Tim Steidten nor Mark Noble picked the team, and I would be very, very surprised if we see any other players apart from Divin Mbama get much game time this season. Let's see. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. But overall, going back to the game, look, West Ham United won, Olympiacos 0. We needed that win. It wasn't a convincing performance by any stretch of the imagination, but we guess we've done enough to get the 3 points, and that's important. They came out to stifle us, and they did that really well. They came out to frustrate us, and they did that really well. The number of times they went down holding their heads, etc. Broke up our play, and you could see it. We started brightly. We always seem to start games brightly, but we started brightly, and then we just fell away because we were allowing their tactics to get at us, and then that made us look worse. And then we started placing missed passes, and then we weren't moving. There was times in the second half we were so static, and the ball kept moving sideways, because there's no movement up front. There was absolutely no movement, but that's because they had 10 players behind the ball, making it difficult for us. But anyway, let's be happy with what we've got. We've got a 1-0 win. We've got 3 points, very much needed. The next game is against Topola away. We've got to go away and win that in Serbia. And then, of course, it's the showdown. It'll be the showdown to see who's likely to top the group. But you never know. Maybe Olympiacos, they need to be back in this, and they've got to play Freiburg, and you never know. They might beat Freiburg, for all we know, and might make it easier for us. But we shouldn't be relying on other teams. We should be doing it ourselves. Enough said. I'm sure I'll be back again soon. We've got an international break coming up after the Nottingham Forest game. I'll do 1 or 2 shows leading up to the Forest game as well. So do watch the channel. Do hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next back on. It's getting cold. My hands are freezing. That's why the camera's shaking. And I'll see you all soon.